who are partly metal, partly real, who have wings of silver and nerves of steel? Silverhawks. Let's talk about them. But before we do, let me say thank you for watching JLS Comics. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe, because I do upload videos just like this each and every week. Alright, let's jump into our story. Following along with the massive success that Rankin-Bass had with the Thundercats, development began on a new series called Silverhawks, which debuted in 1986 and would continue on for a total of 65 episodes. In fact, many of the cast and crew went from Thundercats to work on this new show. Imagine an amalgamation of Thundercats and Battle of the Planets. This new show was distributed by Laura Martello Pictures, which Warner Brothers purchased in 1989, meaning that the rights lay with Warner Media now. Before this, however, and as was customary at the time, Rankin-Bass took the multimedia approach, so there was the show, a line of action figures, and a comic book miniseries published by Marvel Comics, just before it went to the competitor, Warner. The action figure line was put out by Kenner the same year as the series. LJN, which is the company that produced the Thundercats line, was originally going to make Silverhawks as well, but it ended up with Kenner. Kenner modeled the line after their immensely popular Superpowers collection with DC Comics. After the animated series drew to a close, the demand for Kenner's line declined. The 1988 Kenner catalog showed a bunch of new things for a new wave of Silverhawks, which never made it to production, as the line was canceled, like Copper Kidd with the laser discs and a copper racer vehicle. But because of this, there are some later figures and things that are very valuable to this day. The Quicksilver with ultrasonic suit, for example, is one of the rare items of the line that did make it to production and is incredibly expensive. The comic book was a 7-issue miniseries whose first issue hit shelves in 1987. It retold the origin of Silverhawks, as it was told in the show, as well as a few other of their later adventures. So here it is! Many years before the team's formation, Commander Stargazer had put a fearsome criminal named Monstar in prison, locked away on a penal colony in the Limbo Galaxy. In the year 2839, the Limbo Galaxy experienced a starburst from Monstar, and the cosmic rays from that solar burst washed over Penal Colony 10. The rays powered up the villainous Monstar. His face became this metal spiky thing, and he escaped by punching his way out, and he called on his squid friend Skyrunner. He has this power to shoot a laser out of his eye, so he shot it at Skyrunner, and Skyrunner transformed into a metal space speeder vehicle. He then went back to the Penal Colony and freed a group of the most dangerous criminals in all the universe. So Commander Stargazer sent out for help, requesting aid from the Earth-based Interplanetary Control Force, headquartered in Lawrence, Nevada, and his friend General Rawlings. The general put the former head of Interplanetary Force H in charge of the new team. The problem was that from Earth to where Commander Stargazer was on his planet was many light years away. So to solve this problem, General Rawlings tasked Professor Jamaican with creating the new team. The professor and his nurse put the team under surgery for biomechanical enhancement procedures that they'd done with other teams, which would allow them to travel that distance and survive in the new galaxy. These procedures are what made them cyborg, part human, part machine. They got shoulder jets, arm jets, and heel jets, along with their metal exosuits and metal wings, even metal hair. The new team comprised a few core members and their accompanying warbirds, these fighting hawks that helped them out like drones. Captain Jonathan Quick, aka Quicksilver, was the former Interplanetary Force H commander, and he is the Silverhawks commander and leader. He's paired with a bird named Tallyhawk, who used to be Stargazers, but he gave Quicksilver Tallyhawk. He's the only bird to predate the formation of the Silverhawks. The rest were made by the twins. The team also had a cowboy named Colonel T-Boone Pickens, codenamed Bluegrass, who's Quicksilver's executive officer. Bluegrass pilots their team's ship called Mirage. Bluegrass doesn't have a bird, but he does use a guitar called Hot Licks, as well as Sideman the Riffhawk. The team also had a twin set of sergeants on the team named Emily and William Hart, whose codenames became Steelheart and Steelwill. During their alteration procedures, the twins had their hearts replaced with steel hearts. They also had a twin connection, enabling them to telepathically communicate with each other. Steelwill used Stronghold, Steelheart used Razor. They also had a young blue non-earthling on the team who bleeps and whistles to communicate, and his name was the Copper Kidd, hailing from the planet of the Mimes and using Mayday as his companion. Later on, as Stargazer asked for more troops from General Rawlings on Earth, the line was expanded to include more characters like the Time Traveler Flashback, the Illusionist Hotwing, and a turquoise Silverhawk named Moonstriker. The later recruits like Flashback debuted in the appropriately named Flashback episode, and he used a hawk named Backlash. In Flashback, the Silverhawks all died, and it was up to the Time Traveler to alter history as a result. Pretty cool episode. Hotwing debuted in Hotwing Hits Limbo, and he was paired with Gyro. And Moonstriker came along in an episode called Battle Cruiser, and he was paired with Tailspin. Oh, and there was an older retired Silverhawk too named Condor, who was also introduced in Battle Cruiser. Condor didn't have a bird on screen, but most likely he had one when he was still on active duty. Eventually, the Silverhawks arrived at their new base of operations, an artificial moon called Hawk Haven, which orbited around the Earth-like planet of Bedlama. It was in the shape of a giant hawk because, well, why not? As soon as the Silverhawks go to Hawk Haven, they actually ran into Monstar and his monster mob, his gang of criminals and foot soldiers. Monstar had his own base of operations at the bottom of a star-shaped crater on a planet called Brimstar, and from there he sought to rule the Limbo Galaxy, using his army of cronies to do his bidding. Near Brimstar was the Moonstar of Limbo, a satellite whose radiation imbues Monstar with his power. It's the same one that allowed him to escape from the penal colony. Monstar had the snake-like lackey Yes Man working for him. Then there was a golden robot with saws on him named Buzzsaw. Hardware had a bunch of, hardware, and he liked to build things. Then there was this 1980s era Gem and the Holograms reject named Melodia, who worked for Monstar as well. In fact, if Gem and Captain Planet had a baby, an evil baby, it would be Melodia. Mumbo Jumbo was a fire-breathing minotaur. Then there was Windhammer and his big metal tuning fork stick with which he could manipulate the weather. Then there was Molecular, the master of disguise, and Pokerface, looking like a punk rock vampire. And from Brimstar, Monstar and his mob wreaked havoc on the Limbo Galaxy. When the Silverhawks first arrived at Hawk Haven, he and his high command rode out to fight them, but they were held back and ended up retreating. Monstar then wanted revenge on Stargazer for bringing the Silverhawks to Limbo Galaxy. Hardware made a super lockpick, so he used it to sneak into Hawk Haven and kidnap Stargazer. The catch here was that they were spying on Monstar, and Stargazer learned of the plan, so he wanted to get captured, as Monstar's base was virtually impenetrable otherwise. This way he could learn all their secrets. Even still, the Silverhawks somehow managed to break in, rescue Stargazer, who was able to steal all those secrets on a USB drive. The third issue drew out the Limbo Gold Rush episode where Bluegrass kept singing spacey songs to the tune of Clementine while a space bandit stole gold from the planet of Automata and took it to the planet of Fence to sell. Then there was a robot mule because, again, why not? The fourth issue of the miniseries was an original story. Pokerface had a new game to play on a starship casino and a savvy gambler named Percunius Wellington beat the game. Pokerface was angry at him and stole all his winnings, so Percunius went to the Silverhawks for aid. The Silverhawks weren't able to help because the Starship Casino was outside of their jurisdiction, which was 1 light year around. Copper Kidd ended up taking him back and ended up gambling to win his money back. The fifth issue retold the episode Fantascreen, where the villain Hardware had built a machine with a screen that allows the viewer to see their wildest fantasies, and when you see those, you become an entranced, mindless slave. And this very thing happened to Steelwill, so the rest of the Silverhawks had to help him out. Issue 6 was also an original story not found in the animated series. The cover exclaimed, "Hawk Haven destroyed!" Stargazer was out attempting to stop a robbery. He also got invited back to the planet Earth to get a new biomechanical body called Fastback. Now not at the base, Monstar learned of this and attacked Hawk Haven, and only Copper Kidd was there to defend the base. The 7th issue was a retelling of an episode called Darkbird. Hardware created an evil clone of Quicksilver that he called Darkbird, which he sent to rob Lord Cash in the banking planet of Dolar. But this plot brought him into direct confrontation with Quicksilver, and they were all stopped. The Silverhawks also had other adventures throughout the show as they became the Limbo Galaxy's space cops and fought the villains and plots of the week, from the Star Chomper to their seizure of an artificial sun that powers the Limbo Galaxy. The caretaker of the artificial sun of Limbo was this lightbulb head-wearing guy named Professor Power, and he's the one who went to the Silverhawks to help stop Melodia, Hardware, and Buzzsaw from enacting Monstar's plan. Also, at the end of each episode, the Copper Kidd would get an interesting space lesson from Bluegrass. We got to learn something with our fun, just like knowing is half the battle, or the environmental messages woven into the Centurions. Speaking of the end, there's one tally-ho for the road. And with that, that's a wrap on this one, my friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and you'll be one of the first to know when I upload videos just like this each and every week. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.